I was so young when I joined. I was 17 at the time. And how I even had it introduced to me was so random. So it was like one of those things where we totally defied my father and his wishes. He definitely was not a happy camper. When I told him, it was not just you disobeyed, it was you betrayed the country. I was just tired. I was done with it. It's very labor intensive. It's early mornings, it's long hours, it's travel, you're not going to nice places like Hawaii and Aruba. You're going to the middle of an Ohio desert and dropped off and doing crummy stuff. So it's not fun. I was just tired and over it, and so I got out. But I don't regret it. It was hard as well as amazing. It's definitely something I'm proud of. Being in the military for 16 years was no easy feat. I was around mostly men. It was a man's world designed for men. Everything from the uniforms to the career fields that you can participate in, everything is designed for men. Definitely told that I didn't belong in one way or another fashion, whether that was women belong in the kitchen. Afghanistan for a long time, at the height of the Afghan war. I was there 2010, 2011, 2012. I was there when Osama bin Laden was caught. The military does a terrible job managing men's needs and desires, and women's, right, about having human contact. Like, they discourage you from having relationships.
What's up, everybody? This is Simon. On this episode of The Ideal Hour, I have Amy Charlesworth on the podcast. She is a former Army veteran. She also has her own podcast called The 𝐀𝐦𝐲'𝐬 Show. She also has a talent agency, and she helps veterans. She seemed like she had great energy, so we invited her on, and she is gracing us with her presence. Amy, thank you for joining.
What a ringing intro. I love this. Thank you so much.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't practice it. This came naturally. And
Wow.
yeah, I know. I'm getting better at it. Amy, so why the Army or why the National Guard? I know women power, and I love women guests on my show. I feel like you girls and women in general are just push the world in a good direction. But why the Army? It's not, typical of female, I would say, although more and more are joining.
Yeah, I was so young when I joined. I was 17 at the time. And how I even had it introduced to me was so random. I was 13 when I got my first job. I used to work at a hair salon, and it was upstairs in a shopping center called the Broadmarsh Shopping Center in Nottingham, England, of all places. Downstairs from the hair salon, there was a royal recruiting office for Royal Army, Royal Navy, all of that. And on my breaks, I would go out and I would see these guys dressed in their uniforms, just looking so incredible. And, I was an impressionable teenage girl. I mean, this is 13 to 16. I was working at this place. And, I would have conversations with them about, hey, what are you, they were recruiting me, of course. What are you doing with your life? What are you doing with your career? And of course, I was in school at the time, and I had this very part-time job at the hair salon. And so when I was about 16, in England, you graduate from high school when you turn 16. I asked my dad, hey, can I join the military? And he was like, you're out of your mind. No daughter of mine is going to join the military. It's just not going to happen. And of course, my dad telling me no as a teenager, plus 3 years of seeing these guys. I think some of my friends had joined the military at the time. It was like, are you kidding me? I have to do this. So my mother had moved to the United States in the early 90s, late 90s. And so I used to come and visit my mom, and I spent some time here as a kid in the US. So when I was 16, I came for the summer to England. My birthday is in August at the end of summer. And I actually had a return ticket. I was supposed to go back to England. And I said to my mom, hey, I really want to join the military, and dad won't let me. And my mom was like, well, join the American Army, join it here. And I was like, you'd let me? And she was like, let's go now, So it was one of those things where we totally defied my father and his wishes. He definitely was not a happy camper. When I told him, it was not just you disobeyed, it was you betrayed the country. He was very upset that I joined the American Army. Yeah. So long story short, he's very proud of me at this point in the military, and I did some really cool stuff. Yeah, me joining the military was an act of rebellion as a teenage girl.
So cool. So it went from a hair salon, and and you weren't getting your hair done at that point. You were cutting or styling people's hair. Then I think you
I
felt.
was I was making cups of tea.
Oh, you were making cups of tea.
I was making cups of tea and like scheduling appointments. Yeah, I wasn't a hairdresser. I was just like, an assistant around the hair salon. Yeah.
I think you fell in love with the uniforms.
I did. It was definitely about the guys for sure. Like you can put whatever spin on it you want, oh, it was career development. It was opportunity. No, it was the cute guys in the uniform. What do you want me to do? Leave me alone,
I could see that draw, and I'm sure the Army
Yeah.
picks very presentable individuals to go out there to recruit. But you don't
They
regret
sure
it, and
do.
it sounds like your dad came around to it, and we had a cool service member here in America. So kudos to America for having you. Versus Britain or London or the UK. So let's talk about you also spent 16 years there.
It is, yeah. So I'm 34 right now, about to turn 35, and I just got out a couple of years ago, and I did it for so long. I think partly because it was all I knew. I was 17 when I joined. They put me through training. I went to Afghanistan. I've been all over the world with them. I got my undergrad and my master's degree through the military. In exchange for being in the military, they paid for my schooling. So I built my whole career out of the military, and so leaving was a really hard decision. Most people, if they're going to stay in 16, you may as well go 20. So one of the number one questions I get, well, why didn't you just go 20? And the truth is, I was just tired. I was done with it. It's very labor intensive. It's early mornings. It's long hours. It's travel. You're not going to nice places like Hawaii and Aruba. You're going to the middle of an Ohio desert and dropped off and doing crummy stuff. So it's not fun. I was just tired and over it, and so I got out. But I don't regret it. It was hard as well as amazing. It's definitely something I'm proud of. But man, I was definitely done at 16.
16 is a long time for anything. Let me ask you a quick question. Does 20 years get you like some type of pension, or is it like a tenor or something like this?
Yeah, so it does. Yeah, there's the retirement. You're eligible for the retirement. There's other ways. Like, I mean, personally, I have a medical qualification, so I'll still get some form of monetary remuneration monthly for the rest of my life. But at 20 is typical for when people retire.
I don't blame you for moving on. I think it's growth, right? You've achieved so much there and got your degrees, which is pretty cool. And then you've moved on. You started a talent agency. Tell me a little bit about it. What's the name of it, and why a talent agency? Because you've come across, I'm sure, so many personalities while working in the Army and outside.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun. When I was in the military, I was actually a recruiter. I was human resources, but then I was a recruiter for several years. So I was, going out there and meeting people out in the world and putting them in boots and sending them off to boot camp. And I did that for so long. And, right at the tail end of my career, I started getting really interested in what does the corporate world look like? What does the civilian world look like? So my first job out of the military, I worked at Nike, and Nike's headquartered in Beaverton, Oregon. So, from Nike, I was working in human resources and talent acquisition. And from there, I started working with other big brands. So I worked with Amazon. I was, doing recruiting and marketing stuff for Amazon. I've worked with Louis Vuitton, worked in talent acquisition for Louis Vuitton. So like I had all of these like corporate experiences as well, that kind of like teed me up slowly for what I have become, which is where I'm at today, where I've got Q talent agents, and my agency, it's multifaceted. It sounds like it's a talent agency in respect of like, hey, you got a great set of vocal pipes on you. You should be a singer. Let's, create a CD and get it out there. But it's not quite like that. My agency more connects people. So I recruit, I hire, I fire, I do human resources, I pair people, I book people, So it's basically just like a master house of connection. And so if you're looking for somebody or something, I can probably find it for you. If you're trying to book talent on your shows, I can probably find them for you, so I do a lot of that type of work too. So it was just so natural, having all of the experiences and exposure to different industries, as I was kind of going through working for those major corporations and in the military. I just developed that skill to talk to people, to recruit people, to connect people. And I figured, why not just start doing it for myself? And I fell into the YouTube and podcast industry, and I love it so much. And obviously I just launched my own show too. It really is kind of the meeting of all of my favorite things, being extremely social, connected, networking, going to events all the time, filming, it's just everything that makes sense. And I think I'm pretty good at it. So figured, why not?
I think you have the energy for it personally, just in this few minutes of talking to you. I think it's definitely, you found your niche. And your podcast or the show is called the 𝐀𝐦𝐲'𝐬 𝐈𝐧𝐬. Give me a little bit about that. Why start a podcast? Now there's I know why I started one, but there's bazillion of them now. And why did you start one, and what's the goal of it?
Yeah, I love this question. So it's so funny. I get kind of like a variety of responses when I tell them the name of my show. That's such a weird name. Why is it called that? But once you hear why, it really does make sense. So being in the military for 16 years was no easy feat. I was around mostly men. It was a man's world designed for men. Everything from the uniforms to the career fields that you can participate in, everything is designed for men, the training, etc. And so I was constantly told that I didn't belong in one way or another fashion, whether that was women belong in the kitchen, you shouldn't be in this career field because only men should do that, right? Like all these strong opinions would come over, because I was a girl in a combat zone, as an example. I was over in Afghanistan for a long time at the height of the Afghan war. I was there 2010, 2011, 2012. I was there when Osama bin Laden was caught. Even in those environments, it's still, women shouldn't be behind the wire, be in front of the wire. They shouldn't be out in the, in the Humvees. They're a risk. You're just a desert bunny, desert flower, barracks bunny, which is basically just military slang for saying a woman is a floozy. Either way, I just didn't belong in some way, shape, or form. And it was constantly other people filling in the blank of 𝐀𝐬𝐬. 𝐀𝐬𝐬 is not wanted. 𝐀𝐬𝐬 is not, qualified. 𝐀𝐬𝐬 isn't, physically fit enough, whatever it is, right? And so that's part one of why it's called the 𝐀𝐬𝐬 show. It's because I'm filling in the narrative of who I am. But more importantly, the show is designed, one, to tell other people's stories so they can fill in their blank of who they are. But two, it's also designed to help service members in particular find their footing when they leave the military, because leaving the military is such a scary thing in the first place. I mentioned to you, leaving after 16 years, it's like a safety net. That's all I knew. And that's the story for so many people. We recruit people at the ripe age of being in high school. We literally send recruiters into high schools to recruit kids to become friends with the wrestling coaches and the high school development teams and stuff like that, so that we can recruit them straight out of high school. It's all they know. And we have a retention crisis in the military, and because there's so many things happening around the world politically, et cetera. So when people are leaving the military, they're falling flat on their faces. There's obviously an epidemic of mental health issues with the military. There's a recruiting and career crisis for them. They're not really sure how to get a job after they've been an infantry soldier for 10 years. And so I really wanted to help those people. And that was all of my experience combined, where I felt best suited for it. I've been in the military. I was human resources for the military. I've been human resources civilian side. I've been a recruiter civilian side. So I feel like I was rightly placed to connect people, to connect information, to connect resources to those soldiers, so they have a better chance, not just soldiers, but service members, so they have a better chance of success when they get out. And I thought, what better way to do that than to have a podcast where I could reach a wider audience, where I can have on the show some of these incredible people I'm connected to. I just had Michael Sartain on, and I've had a few other incredible people, Austin Alexander, who's a former Navy veteran, that's just been thriving civilian side. And so to be able to help those people with information and resources, knowledge, one of my questions to the people that come on the show is, if you're in crisis and you're leaving the military and you've got a family, you're not really sure where you're going to go, what you're going to do, what's the first thing you would tell them? And so it's like those little tidbits of information that help those service members thrive and create a community for them, and resources and networking for them, so that they're not falling on their faces when they get out.
Well, first I want to say that's wonderful, and I'm glad you're doing that. It's such an important part. I always respected the law enforcement and the military. This is kind of a two-part question, or maybe a comment as well. It's like in the military, people, it sounds like, get institutionalized. They don't know the outside world. It's almost very similar to being in prison, for example. You're just used to such a, and I'm not comparing the military to prison, but you're used to such a lifestyle.
You're not far off.
Maybe, see. Well, I'm glad I didn't offend anyone.
No.
But you come out and you just don't know the life outside of it, and you're lucky if your spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend are still around, your family's changed. So I'm glad that you're giving perspective for individuals that an understanding that there's life outside of it and they can do stuff with their skills that they learn. But I also want to make a comment. I feel like people in the military are generally hard workers. There's that good tradition of wake up early, get stuff done. There's no excuse. Let's keep going, that type of thing. So in theory, they're mentally more prepared than someone that's coming out of college and that's, not necessarily the hardest working, strongest mentality individual. So if that direction, which shows like yours, can be pivoted in the right direction and change their thinking, or have them basically get familiarized with today's society, I think those workers can create businesses that are going to be above and beyond what someone may get taught in college versus a political propaganda nowadays and so forth. So I'm glad you're doing it. The second question I had was, do you think high school recruiting is a little bit early for the military? And is there, like you mentioned, coaches and stuff, is there like a financial kickback to these coaches and these, varsity coach of basketball or football? How are they, what's the incentive for the coaches to push a student and say, hey, maybe you should try it?
So there's a lot to unpack there. There's also been some very public drama that's happened with a program that used to be called the GRAP program, which was a government funded program where the person referring would get like $2,000 or something like that. And there was a big scandal with it. There was an FBI investigation. There's all kinds of stuff. They actually discontinued the program because of the abuse that happened. But there has been a financial kickback. In addition, there also is currently funds available to high school programs like wrestling programs, et cetera. And they'll put up banners and they'll do all kinds of things. But the military recruiting efforts are so widespread and deep. You would be shocked to learn what some of the things are that are done by the government to recruit and basically create, I don't want to say propaganda, but like desire to join the military. I'm going to give you some probably lesser known examples. One being the Pledge of Allegiance before baseball games and basketball games and things like that. Everybody thinks, oh, this is just us honoring our country. No, it's not. That is literally a military funded, well-placed event before sporting events to create an allegiance to nation, to help recruit people to join the military. So is things like the flyovers that they do at the Super Bowl, like those are all military recruiting events. Zach Brown used to do chicken fried and do a salute, on stage. That's a military recruiting event. They contacted recruiters' offices to have recruiters go and do this event. So, there's all kinds of things that are happening all the time around you, and you would never put two and two together. Oh, this is a marketing strategy for the military to get people to join the military. So your question was, what do I think about high schoolers being recruited? The thing is, I'm so torn on it. When I was a teenager, I needed it. I needed that kind of structure, the sense of belonging. I didn't have I have great parents, but I didn't have like my mom was in the US, my dad was in the UK. It was kind of divided. And for me, I loved the idea of having a community around me and like being involved and being a part of something. And, so for me, it was great. I mean, I got my undergrad and my master's degree. I got an entire career out of it. So there's so much good that can come from the military, and it can set a teenager that may be on a bad path on the right path. But it also can be a really negative thing. I mean, you can get, you as a parent, you send your teenager off to boot camp and you never see them again. As soon as they leave boot camp, they're going to war and maybe they don't come home. So, I mean, there's good things to it, and then there's bad things to it. There's a dark underbelly of the military that's not glamorous. Like, the fact that there's military sexual assault, and that's an epidemic, and that's not appropriately managed
or ever discussed. This is like maybe one of the few times I hear about it, and you're mentioning it.
Yeah, I personally, and this is one of the things I talk about, on my show, is I personally have been a victim of military sexual assault, and I've personally been let down by the military, on a grand scale, for them holding that person accountable and making sure that I was safe. And so, and other women. And so, there's these dark things too. And so I would say, like most things in life, there's good and then there's bad to it as well. But in terms of like, what I have a 15-year-old son. Would I want my 15-year-old son to be recruited by the military? No. I would want him to go to college first and, have some years of life outside of the military before making that decision. But again, for the kids that need it, it is the most amazing thing.
Yeah, I could see where it gives you like a group or a family. If you feel like there's a component of family maybe missing, and you mentioned your dad and mom kind of live separate. So I'm sure that had some effect to you needing that component where they do provide structure and balance and a feeling of belonging. It's interesting that also carries over to like martial arts. I feel like a lot of these studios have the same type of feeling where I see people come in and they're like, this is a family, or a gang, for example. Maybe even a police department and so forth. So you feel like there's a second family there.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And you mentioned you don't want your son in it. And why would you not? I mean, why? So if he comes to you just like you came to your dad and said, hey, I'm joining, what's going to happen?
It's full circle. I know. I think about this a lot because my son's actually asked me about the military. He was a baby while I was over in Afghanistan, so he grew up in life with me while I was in the military. So he's seen all of my highs and lows with the military. And, he's still very much considering joining. And the thing is, if he came to me and he said, this is really important to me, I really want to do it, and I had the opportunity to explain to him all of the risks, all of the benefits, and because I've been a recruiter for the military, I've been human resources in the military, like I know the inner workings very intimately, I would suggest to him the best course of action to join. It's not just join the military and go in as an E1. Get your 4-year degree college first, because then you can go in as an officer. It's a different level of respect. You're going to have a different experience than you would, than I went in. I went in enlisted side. I did many years of enlisted and became, an E6 before I started going down the officer route. So there's definitely a way to go about it where you're more successful or you have a better experience. So I would ultimately concede, I would let him join. But it's just one of those things where, you're hesitant to send your kid into the belly of the beast.
So you take on after your mother and consent to it, and then
I would.
Yeah, and then go that route. Makes sense. You mentioned, and it's not talked about often, and I feel like we should bring it up, and you don't have to go into crazy details, but assault, sexual assault, and so forth happens. I assume it's not just with women.
Oh, no, it's absolutely with both. I mean, to environments where you're completely isolated, over in Afghanistan, there's these little cops and fobs. There was, of course, when the Americans were still over there, where there was these little outposts and nobody's there. I mean, there's no women. And one of the things that actually I just talked about on one of the last shows with Michael Sartain is the military does a terrible job managing men's needs and desires, and women's, right, about having human contact. Like they discourage you from having relationships, even outside of the military. Let's say that I was, at any of the bases. Let's say I was at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. They would still discourage me from having a relationship of any kind, which is crazy because then you're denying a whole basic need of sexual touch, right? Like intimacy, things like that. Happens for some people. It pents up, it pents up, it pents up, it pents up, and then they act out, they lash out, and it's just like the most crazy thing that they would deny. And so it's almost like the military feeds the issue to begin with. You do see men on men crime. You see women on men crime sometimes too, in rare cases. So no one is exempt from the experience of sexual assault.
From kind of what I picked up is it kind of gets buried under the rug because they don't want to have a very negative connotation to it, where it's not a safe environment or not a controlled environment. It's very interesting because if you look at ancient, like samurais, for example, they were kind of the early military of that time. They would promote sexual confrontation with their soldiers and samurais just to keep them at ease and at level, and not ignore the basic need, which is like sleep, sex, and so forth. Wow. So that's really interesting. I have no experience in the military, but I appreciate you sharing. So on your podcast, do you give a little bits about yourself as you go through this journey? I mean, it is the 𝐀𝐬𝐲'𝐬 show. So what have you learned so far from doing these podcasts? Because it's fairly new, correct? It's
brand new. There's only one episode out today. There's another couple of episodes about to drop this next week. So there's more episodes coming down the pipeline for sure, but I definitely do share my experience as well. Yes, definitely give away some tidbits about myself. And to be honest with you, there's also some direct to camera stuff coming out too. So I'll have some just me talking little tidbits here and there as well. So that is part of the strategy of the show, is to have just some one-on-one stuff, some stuff with just me. So I'll talk a lot more about who I am, my experience, why I feel I'm qualified at all in any way, shape, or form to talk about, some of the stuff that we talk about. So I'm excited for it. Even just dive, you were just about to touch on a topic that, in general, like the mental health side of things with the military, that has been so near and dear to my heart. It's stuff that I've been through personally, but also as human resources professional for the military. That's stuff I've walked so many service members through themselves, pairing them with resources, et cetera. So I'm really excited to dive in and start posting more of the content so you guys can see and hopefully be able to help some more people out there.
You mentioned some mental health and obviously some challenges of being in the military, coming out of the military, et cetera. Let's talk about how do you confront, you mentioned also like people were sexually trying to maybe disrespect you or whatever it was. How did you confront that for any woman out there listening, not only mentally, but physically, and set boundaries? Or how do you get around that? Because it happens in the workforce. It happens, in private quarters. It happens in so many places. As a strong-minded woman that obviously has overcome stuff, what do you recommend, or how do you process that and go on and make sure that you're doing the best you could do in a daily, activity life?
I would say that's, I've become this like toughened version of myself because I've been through so much around that space for so many years. And I haven't always been this tough, in terms of like having the conviction of like how I would respond to it or what I would do. One of the earliest examples I have, I'll be very clear about what happened. I was over in Afghanistan, and I think this will answer your question just to even share this example. And when I was in Afghanistan, we used to have this S6 shop, which in the military, for those that aren't as familiar with the military, an S6 shop is like your technology department. And it's the department that does like IT and, all of the computer stuff. And they were hosting and offering a private satellite internet connection to your laptop so you could FaceTime with your families, Skype, whatever. And so in order to do that, we would pay $100 a month or whatever. And they said they needed our laptops to get our IP address off of it. So I took my laptop in and I went back to work, came back to get my laptop. A week or so goes by, and then I had this E6 come up to me, the staff sergeant, and he said, "Hey, did you know that your photos are being sold? And I said, I'm sorry, what? This is before Instagram. I think maybe Facebook was around. This is 2011, but this is like pre any type of like OnlyFans or I mean, it was just like there was none of that, right? Like it was so taboo to have an image of yourself rotating around at this time. And I was like mortified. I had never swapped my photos to anybody. I'd never sent my photos to anybody, nothing. At the time I was really into like bodybuilding and going to the gym every day and stuff like that. And I was part of like what's called the NPC or IFBB Pro community. And so I had like images on my laptop of me in like my underwear and stuff like that, like taking like progress photos and stuff. And the Essex shop had sold, they wiped all my pictures and they sold them on CDs that they burned to other service members. And so around the base, my images were being sold and looked at and reviewed and all of that. And then of course I got treated terribly for that. People would look at me differently, speak to me differently, call me names, you name it. And when I reported this to my leadership, it was completely mishandled. I was actually told I would get the Article 15 for having naked images of myself in a combat zone, and that if I pressed the issue, I would get in trouble. And so it got dropped. It never got pursued. And to make matters worse, the person that did this to me, that sold these pictures of myself, was the son of the sergeant major who was deployed with us as well. So there was also that element, right? And so he never got held accountable. And what I would say now from having that experience is I was 20, 21 years old, and I did not have anybody in my corner at the time advising me, helping me, nurturing me. I had the most senior leaders telling me I was going to get in trouble if I pressed the issue, because they were, of course, going to be held accountable, going to be in trouble if they had a scenario like that going on in their command, right? And what I've learned since then is that is so wrong how they handled my case. And if there's anybody out there listening to this that, has encountered anything or will encounter anything in the future where your gut is telling you that it's wrong the way that they're handling it, that no, I should not have been the one getting in trouble. They should have been held accountable. What they did was illegal, wrong, immoral, you name it. They should have been completely kicked out of the military. That is not a safe environment. It's not a safe working environment. It's not appropriate behavior. It is wrong what they did. So if you have anything that gives you the alarm bells of this is wrong, the way that they're handling it is wrong, it likely is wrong. And there is always an ombudsman, there's always a senator you can write a letter to, there is always a next level higher, always. And so if you don't like the answer that you're getting from the leadership that you report the incident to, there's always an escalation level that goes higher. And now today there is also legislation that requires training. So as an example, here in the state of California, there's sexual assault training that's required for all employers and employees, and annually and biannually. And there's hotline numbers you can call that will give you a free advocate and a free resource. That there's someone advocating for you and helping you navigate what is a very difficult time, and a lot of information. And there's other legal recourse and action that you can take. So don't believe the first answer that you get if someone says you're going to get in trouble.
It sounds like they literally try to cover it up, but not only that, blame you for having these pictures and saying, hey, you shouldn't, have stuff on your device or whatever, but completely went the wrong way with someone that's connected to this approach. And I'm glad you're sharing that. And you know what's really interesting? Back then, you didn't have all these Instagrams or Facebooks or 1,000 other apps out there. And who knows if these apps are secure anymore, right? Because you don't know every app you download on your phone. It could be tracking your pictures without you even knowing it. And it kind of applies to girls or younger girls nowadays, or even teenagers and so forth, and maybe even adults, where don't share any of these photos, because with the internet, it's going to get out there, and you're going to, and the person that usually is the victim is the one taking blame. It's so weird in today's society. How did you overcome that mentally? I mean, to have everybody kind of, not necessarily doubt you, but blame you. And I would say they kind of blamed you almost. And you're, already, battling the fact that you're a female in the military, among all these men with testosterone. And how did you how did you get stronger?
Yeah, well, I definitely didn't handle it well. It did send me into like a dark, deep spiral. I was already in a war zone for starters. And then to be going through this where your own people, like your own brothers and sisters in arms are turning against you, having people call you every name under the sun. It's horrible. I mean, we talk about, as a society, we talk about like military mental health and how people end up taking their own lives. And why is that happening? And it's things like this, these types of incidents where you're not taking care of the person to your left and right, and you're not having their back and like standing up for them. And truly at the moment, like I really didn't have anybody standing up for me and like having my back. And so it took me a long time to crawl out of that darkness that I was in. I had to get home from Afghanistan. I had to deal with the fact, that I had to reintegrate into society. It took me a couple of years, if I'm being really honest with you.
Wow.
And this is one of the reasons why I have my show today and why I'm doing what I'm doing today, is because I've done it the hard way. And you don't need to do it the hard way. There's so many resources available to you. There's so many groups that you can be a part of that this won't happen. This type of stuff won't happen to you. And if you are experiencing any kind of mental illness, trauma, loneliness, fill in the blank, struggle finding work, whatever, there are resources out there. And that's why I wanted to just be like, look, I've done it the hard way. It took me years to get out of a really deep, dark place. I went through a lot of issues to get to where I am today. Here's the blueprint of how to do it better. And, let me plug you into this community. Let me get you connected here. Let's get you a job figured out. Let's get your resume fixed. I want to help people so they don't have to go through what I went through. But I would say the first thing that really changed the tide for me, to answer my own question that I put at the end of my show, if someone's in crisis, what's the first tip you would give them? And the first tip I would give someone is, if you are in crisis, you got to go inward first. So stop looking outward, stop looking for someone else to solve your problem. Stop looking for a doctor, stop looking for whatever. It's got to go inward first. You have to make a decision for yourself first. You have to ask yourself first, are you done feeling this way? And if the answer is yes, that's when the change will start to happen. But you first have to answer it for yourself. Are you going to save yourself? Because no one's coming. No one is coming. You have to save yourself.
I agree. Yeah. A lot of people, for some reason, always wait for somebody or wait for the right moment, or they postpone it and not really mentally treat themselves or get help or talk to somebody about it. So that's great that you're doing that. Why do you think there is such a mental illness? Obviously, some people experience trauma differently or perceive it differently. And I've seen it on the podcast, like some people can't see fights or blood or this or that, and they mentioned it, or very traumatizing things, and others are okay to it. Why do people in the military have such mental issues? Do you think it's because the way veterans are treated nowadays? They're not, they're kind of looked down upon in some ways. I've seen in the news where veterans were being kicked out of housing for some illegal migrants, which to me just mind blew me. I was like, how is this happening? What's your take on it? Is it all of the above, or what specifically do you think is happening?
Obviously, it's a very complex and deep issue. And I'll just preface, I'm definitely not a qualified mental health expert in any way, shape, or form. But what I can tell you just from my own experience only, and what I went through, is that the military has a very archaic way of working and training. Without a doubt, we've got an amazing military force. We're so prepared, and the results are incredible in terms of like what we can produce as a military. However, it's unfortunately very old and archaic, and it has not developed. Like we're still digging trenches as part of a training exercise, which is crazy because we don't even fight in that style anymore. And one of the military is having a recruiting crisis right now. And one of the reasons for that is because they have not caught up to speed with modernization of how to treat people, how to, lead people, how to create buy-in. It's very aggressive right from day one. Yes, they have a philosophy behind why they break down people and build them back up, but it's always one size fits all. They're not taking into consideration different learning styles, different, places of career where someone's at, you're all going in one training style. You're all going in one method. Everyone's getting yelled at. Everyone's getting abuse in some way, shape, or form. People are doing it to each other, and there's no correction of that behavior. So even when you're not at a training environment, let's just say that you're at work in the military on a regular day, you've got people abusing each other, verbally hazing, right? Like, it's aggressive behavior and it's not checked. No one's correcting that. Like, we're not doing bullying here, and I already can hear the comment section of like, oh, you think they're going to bully you overseas? No, they don't bully you overseas. I've been there. They don't do that, right? They're not calling you a shithead over in Afghanistan. They're not. I'm sorry. Like, that doesn't happen. You don't need to bully the person that you work with. That type of behavior pushes people down and just makes them not want to be around anymore. So it's just this aggressive, like, gross, toxic work environment. You have to fix the toxicity within your work environment. And unfortunately, it's top down, right? So if you have leadership in the highest ranks, now who's the highest guy in the military or girl? It's the, commander in chief. That's your president. It's top down. So, you have to fix the ranks in terms of treating people respectfully, giving recognition where recognition is due. Yes, you need like a tough military, but I'm sorry, you can create tough people without abusing them verbally and emotionally and mentally, right? People are still people at the end of the day. So I just think we really need to evolve the way that we are training, the way that we're leading, enough that it's not pumping out this toxic work environment.
Listen, with all this experience you've had kind of in recruiting and almost HR, like, have you ever considered, working in HR or recruiting outside for like a professional corporate company? Because I would say that recruiting for the military is probably a lot more difficult in some regard than recruiting for someone to work at cushy Apple or Google and have fluffy eggs and breakfast free and all these nice offices. Have you ever considered doing this in corporate environments, or have you done it?
Done it for corporate environments, yeah. So I did it for Red Bull. I did it for Louis Vuitton. I did it for Nike. So I have done it for corporate. Yeah. So that's kind of where I got my chops to start doing it for myself, is because I did it for all these corporations.
Your military parallel to the corporate environment, was it easier? Was it like, what are the personality differences in these types of jobs?
So I would say it's much easier than doing it in the military. In the military, only 3% of the US population at any given time is eligible to join the military. Joining the military is not easy. You have to be physically fit. You have to meet a specific legal standard, meaning like you can't have a bunch of unpaid traffic tickets. There's certain legal things that you can't even have ever had. Like, you can have like a felony as an example. You can't join the military if you had a felony. So your legal has to be in order. Your education, you have to make sure that you have it, in some cases, a GED, but that's rare. You need to have a high school diploma or more. You need to meet medical standards. So you can't be allergic to pineapple. That's a real thing. If you can't be allergic to nuts. You can't have hay fever. You can't be allergic to penicillin. Like, there's certain things you just can't be allergic to. You have to make it through MEPS, which is the Military Entrance Processing Station. And that is hard. They literally get you naked, look at every inch of your body, surgeries, scars. Like, tell me about, like, they're looking at every inch of your body. They're looking at your medical records. They want to know everything. Where'd you get this paper cut from? And literally they're screening out people that don't meet the requirements. So it's not a walk in the park to just, oh, well, one day I want to go join the military. If you sprained your ankle a year ago, they're going to want to know those details. And so it's very, 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 very tough to join the military. On top of that, you have to pass aptitude test, which is called the ASVAB, to get a score of where you rate. And if you don't get the minimum score, then you can't get in, right? So recruiting for the military, it's extremely tough. I could go outside right now. I actually see down here on the street, there's a bunch of high school kids down there. I could definitely encourage them to go to MEPS to go to see if they can make it through, but maybe one of them would make it. Recruiting is really, really hard. It's not like in the corporate world where you post a job and you get 300 candidates that want to go in, and you're going to interview 4 or 5 and you're going to be good. It's much more challenging than that.
When you worked in the corporate environment, what did you look for in a person? Because you've come across quite a lot of people at this point in terms of recruiting, and really had to weed them out. I didn't know it's that difficult for the military. What do you look for in people that you want to recruit? Louis Vuitton, maybe people that love handbags. I don't know in some regards.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but what are you looking for in the person out there? And obviously different positions, but
Yeah, so I would say, of course, you have your technical difficulties, right? Depending on the position, and depending on the entity that you're going to go for. But ultimately, what I look for is personality traits. I want to know, is this person going to be on time? I want to know, did they show up correct? Are they in their car on their phone? And, if they are in the car on their phone, give me a good story, right? Like, how did you still make it to the interview, but you had to fight off a bear, you had to, tumble through some weeds, whatever it was. Like, how did you get to the interview on time looking like that with your phone, right? Give me a good story. And so personality, because here's the thing, if someone is determined, committed, they're showing up, they're hungry for it, if they've got all of those personality traits, in most roles I can teach them the rest, right? So let's say I'm hiring for an executive assistant. If they've never been an executive assistant before, that's a role I could probably teach you. And maybe it's probably even better, because then I could teach you how I want you to be, right? I can teach you the calendar, I can teach you how to use email, but the stuff that I'm really looking for is the soft skills. Like, how do you interact? Can I have a conversation with you? Do you make eye contact? Do you show up on time? Do you have passion? Like, what do you want out of life? So often I'll ask questions that are nothing to do with the job. Like, how do you organize your closet? Walk me through, a Sunday. How do you spend your Sundays? And I'm looking for answers like, well, I know I've got work tomorrow. I'm resetting the week, so I'm doing my grocery shopping, making sure I've got enough food to get me through the week. I'm, cleaning my house. I'm taking my cat for a walk, whatever it is, right? I want to make sure they have some kind of structure in their day and they're organized and that, they've got like a good direction behind it. But the hard skills, I can teach those.
you could take a cat for a walk.
Some people do. I don't have a cat. I'm a dog person myself, but I live really close to a park here, and you see some crazy things down in the park. Some people walk their cats.
That's kind of crazy. You're in LA. I bet you're in LA.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. It reminds me of Meet the Fuckers, when the guy said he can milk the cat. I was like,
yeah, that right there is telling too. If you figured out how to take a cat on a walk in a park, like, you figured some hard stuff out there, my friend.
In terms of your podcast, you mentioned you have one episode out now. I saw your setup. It looks very beautiful on Instagram. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What have you learned so far in that world? And kind of, I'm asking for myself. And what do you feel podcasts, are they fun? Like, give me a little bit more about having a podcast, because not a lot of people talk about having a podcast out there.
Oh my gosh, it is so fun. It's got to be the funnest thing I've done in my entire career. I would do it all day, every day. I absolutely love it. And that is the goal. I hope to build the show enough that it's my full-time focus. But I think, I'm such a people person, that's why I've been in human resources and recruiting. I love talking to people and unpacking their stories. So that's my favorite part about it. But I also didn't realize, I've worked in the industry for some time now, and I knew how incredibly intricate it is. I mean, it's not just like set up a microphone and, film. There's the post-production, right? There's the partnerships side of things. There's the ad space. There's the timing of posting. There's the content strategy. It's so complex. And so I would say the number one thing I've learned is how important it is to network and create relationships with people in the space that can help mentor you and educate you and teach you to maybe solve some of those bigger issues that you're just going to be overwhelmed with. The other thing I'll say is I wanted to do this for probably 5 or 6 years now. And I didn't do it until this year. And I had one person who is so amazing and incredible, Julio, who is huge. He's an immigration attorney, and he's got quite literally billions of views at this point on YouTube and social media. And we had dinner once, and we were talking about my dream, and I was picking his brain a little bit. And I hadn't quite even started my podcast. And he just looked at me and he said, Amy, you're a perfectionist. And here's the thing. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be done. And so I'm like, you're right. So I called a studio and I just did it. And I'm like, the first 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 may suck, But at the same time, I'm going to be learning as I go. I'm going to get better with time. The repetitions are going to matter, right? Like I'm going to be building community. So now I just went to like the Podcast Evolutions conference and I met some other great people there. And obviously I work in the space anyway. So it's just been the most incredible journey. And I'm so excited about what's to come.
I'm so happy for you. Yeah, I agree with you. It's never perfect, right? And people often ask like, what's the perfect time to have kids, or what's the perfect time for this or that? It's never the perfect time. You just got to do
Never.
it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're doing it. And how does your son, what's his name? And how does he,
Eli.
Eli, I love the name. How does he like you doing podcasts? Is he interested in that stuff, or is he completely in his own?
He loves it. Yeah, I think he's in high school, obviously. And he I think uses it as an opportunity to show his friends, that he's got a cool parent, which I love because I don't feel cool in any other way, shape, or form. But he really wants me to have David Goggins on the show. He loves David Goggins. He's obsessed with him, and he's definitely a dream guest of mine too. And I recently was just at an event called Aspire, and they had David Goggins there, and and he was like, "Oh my God, you're 1 degree of separation from David Goggins." And it's so true. As I continue to go work in this environment, you're meeting people all the time, and it's like this person just had that person on their show and this person just had that person on their show. So you're always just like 1 degree of separation between the person that you really want to connect with. And so he loves it. Again, both of our goals is to get David Goggins on the show. So we'll see what happens. But I'm excited. That's my cool factor for my kid.
You got to catch him running somewhere and then just pull up and say, if I could run with you for 1 mile and keep up, then you're in the podcast.
That'd be hard. He runs, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I heard he runs around the Marina Del Rey area here in California. And so I've thought about this, like maybe I should, it's a little creepy. I don't know.
Hi, David. If I run 1 mile, you're coming on my podcast. Oh my God. In terms of, obviously we talked about mental health. We talked about your journey, overcoming some things with your second family, which was the military is what we'll call it. What about physical fitness? You look like you're in shape over the camera. How important has that been to a positive mindset for you? And at your age, making sure your body is respected as much as your mind is.
It boils down to this. If you're not moving, you're dead. That's a military philosophy. You got to stay on the move. You cannot just sit there and stay. You have, unless you've got an entire base worth of resources, you cannot just sit there. You have to keep moving. You have to. And that's so true in terms of like your health and your mental wellness and all of that. You've got to keep moving. And so I go to the gym almost every day. I don't go every single day, but I go almost every day. And if I can't go to the gym for some reason, maybe I have like a really packed schedule. The other thing I have is I have a standing desk and I have a treadmill underneath my desk that I walk on, just very slow. It's like 2.5 or 3.0. And I'm just walking while I'm doing my emails and things like that. But it's such a small thing to do. I mean, you can get one of those walking pads for $150 on Amazon, by the way. So they're very affordable and accessible for people. But you have to keep moving. For me, it's meditative too, right? Like I use that time, even if it's like first thing in the morning or last thing at night, if that's when I can fit it in, or even like sometimes just for lunch, I'll hop up and, go walk for 20 minutes. The importance of like moving your body, it's a chance for you to regroup, reset, push some things around, get your fluids moving in your body, and just, get right. I just can't emphasize it enough.
I love that. I agree with you. And now I have to get one of those things on Amazon, so you'll send me a link.
I feel like we should do another episode where you and I are just talking and we're both walking on our treadmills.
I'm gonna be huffing and puffing, even though I'm in decent shape, but you'll be fine. So it's gonna be me breathing heavy into the mic. I don't know if anyone will watch.
Like for dramatic effect content, though, I'm all for it.
You're right. Actually, that's a good idea. We're preparing for David Goggins, is what we're doing.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, because I'm gonna take your advice and I'm gonna go run down and chase for David Goggins and tell him, hey, 1 mile. The guy told me 1 mile.
If I could keep up 1 mile, you got to give me 1 hour of your time. I think it's fair. All right. We talked a lot. And, I had a question that popped up. You mentioned something in hiring. You said, how organized is your closet? How organized is your closet, Amy? Is it super detailed? Do you know where everything is, or?
So it's actually a weekly task of mine. So on Sundays is my reset day, where I reset everything, including my mind. And so, I do church in the morning. I take my dog to the dog park to get his legs out. And then once I get home, I go through and I organize my whole house. I'm doing laundry, cleaning, restocking the fridge, right? I go in my closet and I organize all of that. So it's organized by color. I even have a little storage area for what season are we in? Are we in winter? Are we in spring, right? So it's just like all the right season of stuff. I try to have, pantsuits, I'll buy the pantsuits, shirts by the shirts. I've got my dresses by the dresses. It's very organized. Yeah.
Good for you. Okay. Very good. Inspiring. And as we kind of wrap up this podcast, I always ask my guests, if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self or any point in your life, what would you say to yourself? What would it be, and why?
Yeah. So I love this question. This is an amazing question. I'm going to steal this one from you at some point for another guest. I felt really, I felt like an outsider, like a lot of the military stuff I was just sharing with you as an example was a big cause for that. One of the things I just shared with you a moment ago is that true change mentally starts from within. And what I wish I would have had the maturity to tell myself then, that I constantly tell myself now, is that everything's going to be okay. And, even if I'm the only one that is choosing the path of rising above. So it wasn't me being a bully. It wasn't me, being mean to others. It was only me in that environment being kind and patient. I was constantly still being kind back, even though people were being horrible. That is the right thing. Even if you're the only one doing the right thing, do the right thing. Just keep going inward of, fulfilling my own cup. You got to start there. And it took me way too long to learn that lesson, but, filling your own cup first. You're not alone, you're on the right path, and always do the right thing. We'll get you to the right place that you're meant to be. And frankly, I'm doing way better than all of those guys. So I did something right.
I love that. Trust your gut, and
trust your gut.
You're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing. And then you mentioned earlier, obviously, your son's 15. Are you married? Are you?
No, I'm single.
Single. Any dating advice for any ex-military or anyone out there, or what's going on with that?
Yeah. So, I live in LA, which is one of the hardest places on the planet to date. And I also just had kind of like an awkward period of time here in LA, I was trying to figure out how do you even date here? It's so unique and different to other places. And what I've learned and what I'm very comfortable doing now is write a list of attributes that are non-negotiable that you're looking for in a partner. And as part of my meditative exercise that I do, I basically just focus on those attributes my partner will be this, 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 and this. And that's the type of people that you're going to start attracting. Because I feel like when you entertain the wrong crowd, you're going to get more of the wrong crowd. When you don't even have an idea of what you even want, you're going to get what you don't want for sure. And so now that I have a list of what I want, I've noticed I'm starting to be around people that are more like that list. I'm having the standard. I'm saying no to what I absolutely don't want. And I'm being clear about what is on my list and what I don't want. And that I think is helping a lot. So we'll see what happens. I did just start talking to someone.
I love that. And I hope it works out. And you're not settling.
No, don't settle. Oh my God, don't settle. Yeah.
Excusing the bad behaviors. That's great. And if it doesn't work out as your podcast gets bigger, I imagine you'll have no problem meeting new people out there and so forth. And I personally love your energy. I think you're going to do great. And I truly, truly, truly appreciate your time to come on the Ideal Hour, talk about it. And I look forward to your podcast really blowing up. I think it will. So one day maybe I'll come out as a guest if you'll ever have me.
I'm gonna say, Simon, what are you talking about? Get down here, come on the show. I film once a week at the studio, so I would love to have you on.
One day we'll do it. That's a promise.
Tell me when you're in town.
I will. Thank you, Amy. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
There you have it, guys. Amy is not only an Army veteran, has her own podcast. She has great energy. She knows how to recruit. She loves fitness. I mean, the list goes on and on. She is still single, but she's talking to somebody, so we don't know.
And while it's hot.
She's going to meet David Goggins here. Amy, you better.
That's right. I'm manifesting it.
You're manifesting it, and you better turn it up from 2.5 to like 6 on that treadmill.
I'm going to write this email so fast.
That's right.
My emails are going to get faster too.
That should be a podcast on its own with you just going at that speed. So
I'm going to do it. I'm going to have to give you producer credit now, though. You just gave me. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Amy.